Hello, in this video we're going to talk about visual rhetoric and how to analyze visual documents. What is a visual document? A visual document is a document that communicates mainly through images or the interaction of image and text. So it's a picture or an ad or a flyer or anything that has images as well as text. Okay, and then the interaction of those texts is the rhetoric that happens, okay, between the words and the visual. They're all sending some sort of message. People who create visual documents think the same way, rhetorical way, as any writer. Okay? Examples are, of course, advertisement, pamphlets, flyers, photographs, websites, memes, especially memes. Okay. What is the goal of analyzing visual documents? The goal is the same as any rhetorical analysis, to show how you understand how a piece communicates its message and meanings. How do I analyze visual documents? Well, break it down into parts. Much like analyzing anything, you can't just do it on the spur of the moment or on the fly. I mean, you could, but you always should break it down into parts so that you can record the data that you're getting easily. Okay? Understand how each part works to create meaning. Okay? Either separately by themselves or together as a whole. Think creatively. Look at different angles to create interest. And what I mean by different angles is that when we look at things, we can look at things from a different perspective or different perspectives. It's not that you physically look at the piece and you look at it at different angles, like I'm going to go to the right or the left. I mean, you could do that. That's one of the ways. But when we talk about angles, is different stances and different ways of thinking. So, for example, if I'm looking at it from a teacher's perspective, then what would I get out of it as a teacher? Versus if I looked at it as a student's perspective, what would I get it out of a student's? Or if I looked at it from a Republican standpoint, then what would I think versus a Democrat standpoint? All right, so those are different angles. You can choose as many angles as you like, and sometimes angles that you don't agree with, in order to understand fully or to figure out what it might mean, or to understand our own biases, because everyone is biased, whether you like it or not. No matter who says they're neutral, you're always biased a certain way. Okay? Continuing, how else can I analyze it? Okay, or do not only tell what the image looks like, tell what it is doing to you. Okay, and then again, if you're taking it from a different standpoint, what is the image doing to you if you are of a certain bias or a certain angle? Okay, so if we take a look at the visual here, okay, any visual document or any documentation, what it does to you, and then you are the lens, so you're the perspective. You decide on what color you're going to look at the thing itself. What kind of lens are you? Are you going to be the lens of a person who is from the low social economic tier, or are you going to take it from a lens of a person from the top 1%? Okay, and how that lens interprets that data, okay, or how that lens filters that data is your explanation. So you got to explain how it filters, and then that's your rhetorical analysis. But make sure you got to break it down into its component pieces before you continue on your analysis. Okay? So what's the difference between that and regular rhetoric? A regular like written rhetoric that we're looking at. Okay? The difference between basic rhetorical analysis and visual rhetorical analysis is in the interplay between images and words. That sometimes the image and the words, when they are conflicting or when they are supporting each other, may complicate the number of rhetorical devices, tropes, fallacies, etc. that are in play. Okay. What are the parts of visual rhetoric? Well, in our class we've talked about kairos. Okay, and then kairos encompasses not only the rhetorical triangle, but also the context, the time, place, and culture, and the moment that it's in. Okay, so the speaker, the relationship between the speaker, the audience, and the purpose or topic in the context of time, place, and culture, that moment. So the rhetoric would change if it moves from a different context, time, place, or culture, and any one of the variables will change the meaning of what we're looking at. If we look at a World War II propaganda poster targeting like Japanese Americans, that's going to be very different in 1941 than it would be in 2016. Okay, so it would have a different effect. A visual document from the 1906 is going to be very different than 1996. the culture changes. Even within the last like 20 years or 30 years, the culture has changed based on the values, the experiences that have happened. You know, an example would be the visual rhetoric that you get post 9/11 and then before 9/11. Okay. What are some specific purposes of visual rhetoric? Well, there's 4 that are identified. And then, now remember, these are not separate in themselves. They overlap. A lot of times, the documents, just like much of rhetoric, just like your appeals, they all overlap. It's not always going to be one thing. Now, one thing may be dominant, but that doesn't mean the others aren't there. And it would be imprudent of us to only focus on that one and not acknowledge the others exist. Okay, so informational is one. Documents that seek to impart information to educate the audience. Inspirational, documents that primarily inspire emotion or feeling, often without clearly predetermined goals or purposes. Motivational, documents that spur direct action, attendance, or participation. And functional, documents that aid in accomplishing tasks. Now, for informational, inspirational, and motivational, those are related directly to the 3 movements in rhetoric, where we talk about judicial kind of documents or forensic documents. That would be informational. Inspirational or epidictic or ceremonial documents. And the motivational, which would be legislative or deliberative documents. Okay, the source for this presentation is from owl.english.purdue.edu /owl/owlprint/725. Okay. If you want to see the typed written documentation for that, go ahead and use this link. Otherwise, I've transformed it into the presentation with a couple of visuals to make it a little more accessible for the class.